It was Winston Churchill who warned that a nation that forgets its history has no future. This week, a couple of virtue signalling blow-ins sought to erase our past and then rewrite our history. What should have been a respectful tribute to Margaret Court was hijacked by John McEnroe and Martina Navratilova. They unfurled an improvised banner demanding that the Margaret Court Arena be renamed. McEnroe showed it is possible to grow old and yet remain a brat, while Navratilova was clearly performing her penance for insisting that transsexuals should not be allowed to play elite tennis against female players. Margaret Court's record requires no defence from me. It speaks for itself. 24 Grand Slam titles, all won with exceptional skill, all accepted with grace and dignity. Margaret Court is not only Australia's greatest female tennis player, she's the greatest female player of all time. Whatever you think of her theology or her politics, she deserved much more respect than she was accorded by her detractors and Tennis Australia itself this week. Make no mistake, I don't accept all of her views, but ever since she first articulated her positions on gender, sexuality and marriage, I've made it clear that it should be possible to separate her tennis career from her Christian preaching. Did her comments hurt my feelings? Yes, of course they did. But that should be the start, not the end of the discussion. That is how liberal democracies are supposed to work. Social erasure and perversion and rewriting of the past are the favoured tools of totalitarianism. Do Australians want that? I don't think so. As John McEnroe himself might say, you gotta be joking. Sarah, what's your take on the court fiasco?
Catherine, I agree with you and I disagree with you. I agree with you that I think that we as a society have to do better when we're disagreeing. There has become a little bit fashionable that when someone is suddenly out of step with modern cultural norms that we say we have to remove their name from this sporting arena or this monument. We've seen that overseas as well. And erasure is not the answer. And in fact, it only reaffirms the views of people that agree with Margaret Court. Now, I don't agree with Margaret Court. I find her views abhorrent, and I think her words have been extremely hurtful, as you said, Catherine. But she is entitled to her view, and people that agree with her are now feeling even more marginalised and victimised, and that they can't be shut down. But where I would disagree with you, Catherine, is that I think when we talk about sporting achievements, and absolutely, she is not just a sporting champion, she is a legend in the field of tennis. But having an arena named after you, I mean, that's a pretty big honour, isn't it? And don't we, as the tennis-going public, have a right to expect that that's not just a sum total of her achievements on court, but that it is a reflection of her values and her nature? I mean, I would hate to think that in a couple of years we might have the Israel Folau Stadium.
Oh, hang on. We've got a couple of American blow-ins. One who's trying to atone for being excluded from the tribe in Martina Navratilova.
That was
John McEnroe, who's still atoning for his behaviour, which I found quite entertaining, frankly. But hallelujah, if I can say that, no pun intended, hallelujah for you not supporting a hurts feelings test. Because that's what we've got in this country. Someone's feelings are hurt and they demand radical change to prevent some sort of, unhappiness for them.
And Corey, I'm torn by this, as I was by the Folau case. And I wrote about the Folau case. I thought Israel Folau's greatest sin, in fact, was to leave the Queensland Rugby League team. I'm a proud Queensland State of Origin person, and ratting on Queensland's about the lowest thing you can do. I think there's a special place in hell for people who do that.
However,
I do, but I, in my own way, try to navigate my own religious belief as well. And I am completely aware that on any test of theology and of the teachings of the mainstream religions, including Islam, I have placed myself outside organised religion through what I've done. But I don't expect society to be reorganised around me. And this is the test. Sarah, there are two things that worry me about this type of stuff. Martin Luther King, a great civil rights campaigner, wasn't running around the South demanding that the statues of Civil War generals be torn down, which has become a fashion in the last couple of years. And look, Israel Folau and Margaret Court are quoting, in my view, both of them have shown integrity and courage in the face of social media storms and pylons. They've conducted themselves with incredible courage, because it takes guts to actually be unfashionable in this Twitter world. And both of them firmly believe what they've had to say. I am as hurt by anyone by what they've had to say. But if you are going to ban preaching of any organised religion, especially Christianity, and that's where we're heading with this, if you're going to ban an Instagram post straight from the Bible, then you've got to... Why don't you ban the book? Yeah. And if you aren't willing to ban the book, then allow people to quote from it in public fora. And that's the risk. And I've got real concerns about where this freedom of religion debate's going, because I'm on the wrong side of that divide from the queer community. I think it's really dangerous that we've got to a point where we're now arguing in a society that draws so much of its institutional strength from its Judeo-Christian origins, that we're actually having to make a case now to be able to quote from the Bible.
We're not saying that it has to be banned. I think we're just saying, is someone that is willfully causing hurt and showing a lack of compassion and a lack of empathy that people in the community are saying, your words hurt me.
No,
now, those are values that fly in the face of religion.
You cannot prescribe to Margaret Court that she's willfully causing hurt at all.
Absolutely.
The tenet of Christianity is you love the sinner, but you hate the sin. And in Court's version, and a lot of biblical Christians believe that homosexuality is a sin.
But she is welcome to practice her faith.
And she does. She's a preacher.
But is she welcome? Publicly,
is she welcome to practice?
Of course she is. No one is saying that she can't
there's plenty
go
of
to
people saying
church.
Look on social media.
No. What the conversation we are having here is that someone that we, moving forward in the 21st century, if someone is showing a lack of compassion, a lack of empathy for their fellow Australians, and qualities that we will celebrate.
So do you think it should be renamed Yvonne Goolagong Stadium?
Because then we'll be calling, if we're being consistent, we'll call up the American embassy and say, now listen, that capital city of yours, Washington, now, he had a couple of slaves, I think, so not the most empathetic fellow. How about we call it Obamaville?
We're not talking about going through history books. We're talking about moving forward.
We are.
This is just
we are talking about
I'm not. I've already said
Margaret Court's
that
point
I
of view,
think that the protest this week was silly, and I think I agree with Catherine.
So it shouldn't be renamed.
Margaret Court's point of view,
shouldn't be renamed.
No, I don't think it should be renamed, but I also think it's a legitimate conversation that if we were going to be naming another arena in a couple of years, aren't we entitled, as I was saying, as people that pay to go to these arenas, as the general Australian public, I think that those honours should be reserved for people that practice a little bit of empathy and compassion off-field.
I could not disagree more, because I think that you tear at the fabric of our history if you do that. Like, what if say we uncovered in Bradman's private correspondence some homophobic remark? It's well documented that Bradman was reasonably sectarian. You know, Bill O'Reilly and a cohort of some of the Catholic guys in teams with Bradman weren't fond of Bradman. He had his flaws, yet we've overlooked those. We've even put a statue of Warney outside the MCG. Goodness me. Talking about Israel Folau and Margaret Court, and we're lauding bloody Warney.
Sarah's premise seems to be you've got to conform with the current zeitgeist and the approval of the Green Left, might I say, in order to be rewarded or recognised for your sporting achievements.
I can't subscribe any sort of particular ideology or school of thought to what I'm saying. All I'm saying is that a gold medal, a premiership medal, these are sporting achievements. Something like naming a building after someone.
What about 24 Grand Slams?
I think that should be
That's not just a gold medal.
I think that these are honours that should be measured on character. And if you are causing hurt to people in the community, then I think moving forward, I'm not talking about going back and renaming the Bradman stand. I'm saying in 5 years from now, maybe the officials
what about the
making
chapel
these
stand?
decisions need to...
Despite the fact that I disagree with her, I think she passes the character test vastly in better shape than John McEnroe or Martina Navratilova. That's the first point. And I think most Australians think that. But I come back to the broader point that I opened with, that Churchill's very, very great quote. Are we constantly going to have year zero for the latest fad? Like, are we going to become like the Khmer Rouge, where history is meaningless? It's always constantly contested. We've had these defacings of statues of historic figures because they don't measure up by contemporary standards. But they're all part of the fabric of our story. And they all provide an opportunity in the terrible GLP lingo that you talked about, a learning opportunity.
Indeed.
I don't think we need to undo the past, but I think we need to learn from the past when we're moving forward. And my point is simply that we need to take on board that some of these decisions aren't sitting well with people, and that I think we need to look beyond the scoreboard when we're making these decisions in future.
That's fair.
All right.